So is it square now, the little red button?
Yep.
Good. So we're all about to get really testy right now?
Yeah, okay, so we just do a clap and we're on?
Hang on a second. No, I want to get really testy.
You don't need to clap?
No, you need to go test, test, test.
Test, test, test.
Test, test, test.
You're all testy, right? So anyway, do that once.
Okay.
Do that once, John.
We're good.
So I think all the audios will sync up when I do that, when I can put them on the screen. You line the audios up and it just, I clap. Anyway, that's,
Technology,
yeah.
I know.
not my forte.
Yeah,
I've been,
you're sitting with a couple of dinosaurs here, you realize.
Okay, my name is Tim Dermick and this is Georgina Speaks. And I'm especially privileged today because I got somebody who can certify the fact that when someone called me a Keswick old timer the other day, they were wrong. I happen to be with a couple of Keswick old timers, or shall we say Georgina old timers, because I think you're John's Sutton originally. All your full family history, heritage is in Sutton for the most part.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so as usual, I didn't make a real heavy-duty plan for what we were going to talk about today, but there's enough going on between, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. That's interesting enough.
Yeah, that's good. I just wanted to let people know how negative you are, Tim.
Yeah.
How many times you've been tested now?
Well, I got tested in Reina, Cienfuegos to go to Havana to fly to Bahamas, Miami, and then I had to get tested in Miami or they wouldn't let me board the plane with my conductors to Canada. And then I landed in Canada, so I was 3 times in a week and a half. And then again after I was here for 10 days. Yeah, that's a whole interesting thing, that whole leaving the airport without paying a fine and stuff.
Yeah.
I
You
know.
got away without paying a fine.
Well, I just left. I just said, respectfully, I disagree with what it is that you're doing, and I'm not going to wait around for a fine. So here's my business card. If you want a house built, call me, or if you want to find me, send it there. I did. So I just left. But I was respectful to everybody because they are frontline workers, no matter how you cut it. And I went over, and the health people were really good. The workers, they registered me, sent me through, I got my test properly, and the next day I had the results, and so I'm becoming extremely negative these days, so there's that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So how are we making out with, so you were saying you tried to get vaccinated this morning?
Well, I tried to book an appointment this morning, and I started actually at 7 o'clock just to look and navigate the site, and every appointment time indicated at 7 in the morning that there were no spaces.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I went on this morning, I couldn't get it.
I went on again right at 8:30,
Nice.
and again, every one of the spaces was gone. So
That's crazy.
thankfully my nephew helped me out, and I've got an appointment booked in Richmond Hill on the 5th.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good for you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I are the same age. We were not young enough last week, but we're okay now.
Yeah. This is the famous 69 for you, isn't it?
Yeah, coming up.
Yeah. May. In May.
No, October.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
John and I have known each other for a long time, but we haven't been in touch too much. But anyway, so these are the venues that we get to do that, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess a couple of things. I was wanting to talk a little bit about, there's the history of the Lake Drive. That's something that we're definitely going to discuss today with, I'd rather talk about you and Martin and Romus getting drunk at the, at Mercury Lodge. So I understand you guys have a bit of history there too. I used to go.
Oh no, we don't have. We were always angels.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's in the past now.
Very distant past.
It's funny because the way that things were done back in those days, the town was busy with their roads, so they just let people do it. Didn't let people do like as a favor, but they just assumed people would deal with their land, and they had to find ways to work together with them. And so right now that I'm in the middle of I'm not in the middle of it, but the owner of that Mercury Lodge is in the middle of the trying to get a building permit to renovate, to bring their boathouse back up to standards, and so what's happened is so now the town, with its new position that we own everything, and then they're refusing a permit, and they actually had a court order to issue a permit in 2011, and the owners, I don't want to say the town's doing this or the owner's doing that, I don't take a side in it, but the owner is saying that the town's has jerked them around for like 10 years trying to get a permit based on a court order. And then now they're saying it's too far out of repair, so you're not allowed to replace it. And
Well, anything that was previously in place should be replaceable according to town bylaws.
yeah, I agree.
That's been a common thing, like,
Yeah.
but,
So it seems crazy. Doesn't Mercury Lodge owner have title
Well, they have,
to the property, or is it
there is-
indistinct?
well, it's depending upon what year you're talking about, because, there's a certain time that they had an actual survey which showed that as part of this. There's deeds all along that, especially that particular stretch of Orchard Beach stretch. There's a number of people have deeds that actually say where the road runs through the property. So that clearly indicates the owner owns the whole thing and the road runs through it and the town owns that road. If you take the position that the town owns the road, which is disputable as well because it's never been finalized, so. But it's clear the town's supposed to own the road, like that was the intent all along, and nobody's trying to say that they don't. If anything, actually, the complete opposite, that the residents there have been pretty good about acknowledging the town needs to maintain its road, they need to, and it goes back, we were talking about this the other day, where it goes all the way back to 78, when the official plan was originally being put into place, and Mike Smith, he was the head planner at the time, and
Yes.
and Mike's quite an environmentalist, so that was kind of like his thing, the open space. He would be pushing that into the envelope, and so they wanted to designate the waterfront properties as zoned open space. So what happened was, the owners said, well, great, what can we do with open space? So they filed a bunch of objections. And you were there at the time, so when they brought a report from Linton, Leck and Monteith, probably one of the foremost authorities in York Region, a respected law firm anyway, one of the oldest ones in York Region, they brought an entire report of what the consequences of that would be and so on, and
It's a dog's breakfast.
huh?
It's a dog's breakfast.
Oh, it's a huge dog's breakfast, and the main thing is that there is no clear distinction between, the town has a road and they have a need to maintain it.
Yeah. But if there's no clear delineation, how can they threaten to tear down what's there? That's not a good thing.
We're about to find out, because, the thing is that, no, you're absolutely right. If you look at the history of it, those in the original 1979 OMB objections, and yourself and John Rogers, God love him at the time, he was, you were both councillors, and it's right in the minutes.
We asked for a deferral.
You were asking for OMB objections to be deferred.
Absolutely. And that was supposed to happen.
Yeah, and and then the deferral was in favor of trying to work it out through discussions.
Yes.
And in the end, the OMB, the official plan that the town passed was the result of those discussions and agreements, more or less. No, somebody said one time, either if everybody loves it or everybody hates it, then it's going to be a good agreement, right? Because not everybody's getting everything they want, but everybody's getting something. And in that particular case, the result was that the town come up with a list of things that you can do on those under an open space zoning, so that still allowed people with their boathouses and docks and all on the waterfront properties. So it got passed and it went through, and that was an open space designation. They're actually legal. That's legal standing. That gives all those waterfront people, in my lawyer's opinion, and I believe a number of lawyers in the past have agreed, they have legal standing to do whatever it is they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my take. If you say so.
But zoning bylaw 500 allows only certain activities on open space designations, and they are pretty restrictive.
They're pretty restrictive, but what is allowed is there. And the thing is when I look at it, and I've been kind of immersed in it in recent months, and where I've come to on it is pretty brilliant actually what they ended up with, because the town addressed the view of the lake, which was one of your main.
Absolutely.
That's always been one of your large.
Extremely important to preserve the view of the lake for the residents of Georgina as a whole and for tourists, but you got to be careful in your bounds.
Yeah.
If a property was already built on way back when, it's a legal non-conforming use at the time. Even if it wasn't legal, it became a legal non-conforming use.
Right.
So it's legal.
Yeah, that's my sense of it. And, it's kind of funny because I don't know how you draw the difference between legal distinctions and moral distinctions.
That's another podcast.
Well, it doesn't have to be. I'd like to discuss that a little bit. Nice try, Mark.
I couldn't get him off that one.
Because, when you're sitting there as a counselor, and I've never had the experience, and there's a specific reason why I've never had that experience. Because there is not enough money in the Bank of Canada to pay me to sit there and put up with an idiot like me. And so, categorically, I have a lot of respect for people that take on public service and running for council. Everybody has their own reasons for doing it, but in the end, you put up with a lot of crap and misinterpretations of what it is you're trying to do. You have to weed your way through all of that. So I have a lot of respect for that. So, but when you're sitting there, and you can see some people are going to get hurt by what it is that you're passing, but it's the right thing to do. It's not an easy balance to strike.
Well, that's politics, I think, isn't it? I think you could almost put that as the definition.
Balance,
like in a sense, because that's why you got the people there.
Well, it's
to see where the balance is.
A dirty word as far as I'm concerned. Politics. Well, I like to think that the majority of people that we've had there in the past have made the moral distinctions at least with as much priority as legal distinctions. Like they care enough. Okay, they really take into consideration. Okay, who's getting hurt by this? So is there any?
Well, the constituents. You're worried about your constituents because that's what they voted you in, and that's the way it goes. You got to look after them.
Yeah, it's funny when you read all the old comments, and all the citizens are just lovely. When they get right into it, and it's funny in the '92 hearings that they had on this whole issue. Joe Dales was the last one to speak at the last meeting. And it was so eloquent when he talked about we should all be trying to get along here. We should pool our resources and work this out as opposed to trying to fight each other. It was it was typical Joe Dales.
He was always eloquent anyway. Joe was Joe.
Joe was Joe, yeah, that's for sure. So those were interesting times.
I want to put you on the spot, Tim.
Sure.
I'm not really that badly because I wouldn't do that. But I was my in-laws are on the lakefront in Island Grove.
Yes.
And this year I noticed, and this may be a segue into something you want to discuss. This year on Saturdays and Sundays, the traffic on Lake Drive was incredible. Now, I don't know, and so my question is, was that COVID or was that them putting signs up and making everybody go that way, or I don't know.
Or ice, perhaps they wanted to see the ice build up. If there was.
Oh, no, I'm talking about all last summer.
All last summer.
You could hardly get on Lake Drive at Island Grove. It was just the traffic was just bumper to bumper all. But I have a feeling it might have been COVID.
Well, you know what?
People just getting out for fresh air and looking at the lake. Yeah. Which what you were saying. You're saying that you want to preserve that view, and it's working.
Yeah. It's working, but it can be dangerous.
So I'm putting you on the spot, but give me.
No, actually, it's a nice segue. I didn't know when and if I was going to discuss this particular issue because it's a bit of a bee in my bonnet right now, and it is.
Among others.
Yeah, I don't know how them bees get along in there, but anyway, there's a lot for sure. But what happened was I spoke to someone at the Ministry of Transport, and they sent me to somebody to talk about the flow of traffic along Lake Drive, and I noticed the same thing. Just 2 weeks ago, when we had those real blistering sunny days, like the first real hot sunny days, and I walked all up and down Lake Drive, taking pictures of the boathouses and stuff for my court record. But driving up and down, the number of times you had to come up with two cars coming towards each other to pass, and they couldn't. They had to stop because there's a bicycler here and a couple of people walking. And I mean, 3 or 4 times between Jackson's Point and Willow Beach,
yeah.
I come across where I had to actually stop and let this guy go out around the pedestrian, and then I could go out around the bicycle. So that's the kind of congestion that's built up in recent years to become like even more, and now, what I have concerned about is that now council, they threw us into a bicycle path, scenic route, build up for all of York Region, that's part of an entire larger plan.
Yes.
And they, so there's ways to deal with that. And so there's been, Mark, you've mentioned a few times, one way, make the road, all of Lake Drive one
If
way.
you got a 50-foot road, you got room for a bicycle path and traffic one way.
Yeah, you do.
If you got
And-
66.
But which way?
Yeah.
Yeah, flip a coin.
Well, yeah, no, yeah.
Well, that's the all decisions that council's gonna have to make, who's gonna get hurt and who isn't. But, well, who's gonna like it and who's not. But, so my point in all of it was that this has been going on since 2015, this whole bike path route, because I've seen the charts that show what's gonna happen when.
Yeah.
This was the year that the whole thing was supposed to open. But council did not get their ducks in a row. And when they were working with the people on the ad hoc committee, they, instead of working these issues out to get this all done, they just spent that 2.5 years and then threw all their stuff in the garbage, and the lawyer came in and said, no, we own everything.
Where are the safety background studies that?
Well, that's what that's what I was about to address, and that is, so I sent a letter to Dave Redden, whom I love and respect dearly. He's a good guy. He's always been, him and I've chatted many times for many years. And so I sent to him and Ryan Cronsbury. I was copywriting because the two of them were working together there. And I stated that because council has not mitigated the safety risks, and because they haven't taken the steps to establish what do they own, and then take and configure what they own. They got a 20-foot strip of pavement. So take the steps to, the logistical steps to change it to a one-way. Put a bicycle lane on the pavement, identify, none of that. Nothing's actually been done on Lake Drive. And then they just said, well, we've already committed to this season, so they just started putting signs up inviting traffic. More traffic, like they're directing traffic, 6.5 million people in the greater Toronto area, they're directing up Lake Drive. I went to pull into Varney Road the other day. It's the first time I actually noticed the signs had gone up. And I seen it, I actually turned around and went back. And I turned down Varney Road and I went to pull over. And I had 5 cars behind me. Like I had a hard time getting over because I had 5 cars right on my ass. I mean, it was like, and then I realized, well, wait a minute, there is something going on here. What is it? And I didn't realize before you mentioned, but the traffic seemed to be getting.
Yeah.
So now, so what my concern for council and the town and taxpayers is, I'm having a risk assessment done on and it's an actuarial one where you do a risk assessment, and what you're assessing is because somebody's gonna get hurt, or heaven forbid, a kid's gonna get run over and killed. I mean, there's families all day on sunny days, and the increased flow of traffic both ways. And so when that does happen, I want it documented that this was a predictable outcome and steps should have been taken. They should have been playing down Lake Drive right now until we get this resolved. But instead, they didn't get anything done and just said, well, we'll just dump all the traffic in with the pedestrians and the kids and the bikes, and like they had no planning.
Well, again, that's the conflict situation. If you've got a 20-foot paved section, it's hard enough for 2 cars to get by with nothing else there.
Yeah, 100%.
But add the bike lane, which is important.
Yeah, blind spots.
But, you've just made a recipe for disaster unless you plan, like Martin said. Somehow the one way is going to have to be the solution for the best safety.
Yeah,
On safety basis that way, and then of course it has all the repercussions back on ownership and all that stuff. But I'd rather be safe than worry about who owns what on the, the deal.
Well, and the town, quite frankly, why? Why do they have to own it as long as the view can be protected? I mean, it just seems strange that the land grab is there.
Well, I got a question for you then, John, perhaps. Like what power does the region have over the town? If they want a bike path there, do they have to have one? Like does the region tell them we want a bike path there all the way up to wherever, Port Bolster, and you guys are doing it, right?
Well, they don't have that power to enforce the town, to force the town to do it. But the problem is that over the whole planning process of the York Region routes network for bicycle, the town has agreed all along on the roads, right back to the early 90s.
Okay.
So this is a plan that's been known to be coming, but it's never been properly handled, like you said.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
It's been in the works for so long. I can go to I get the map and it shows the map, 2015, this is gonna happen. And it says 2021, the signage is going up. It says it right on their website on that thing. So now, but the plan obviously was all the mitigation for safety purposes, one lane, identify a bike lane, whatever you would normally do for the complete project.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get any of that done. So instead of saying, well, we better put off drawing the traffic here
Right.
until we get that done to make it safe. Instead, they just said, well, we've already committed, we gotta put the signs up. So they put signs up, and it's directing all the traffic right up Lake Drive. It's the new scenic route, and, oh, please play
Well,
nice together.
It's supposed to be directing bike traffic, not
Well,
car
a scenic
traffic.
road, what was that?
Like yeah, well, you're right. Yeah, what is it? It's a bloody scenic route that everybody wants to go and drive on and ride on and walk on.
I think, thinking that you're not increasing traffic is, like, it's a regional designation now. Like, it's on a regional, it's a town designation as far for our area, but it's on the regional
Map.
mapping as, they're trying to make it a destination. And I get it, and, you know, there's a balance between tourism. I don't wanna be Wasaga Beach, God love Wasaga Beach and all that.
Right.
And I was reading up Thousand Islands, they got all kinds of problems with, because they keep increasing commercial and for tax purposes, but it affects the local people there tremendously with the traffic and stuff. I mean, this is not new. I mean, this is all predictable, should be addressed. I just think that they got themselves caught, not, and so that brings me good back to the letter that I sent Dave Red about all of this, and I thought that, and I wanted the town to be put on notice that there is going to be an actuarial study done, actuarial risk assessment that will indicate, as far as I understand, that somebody gets killed there this summer, particularly a kid or whatever, and that's the worst that could happen. But if it does happen, it is definitely a predictable outcome of their actions. And they will be held, criminally responsible.
Who's going to do that study?
I'm having somebody do it.
Okay.
I talked to the minister now, or the transportation referred me to one company, and I'm not gonna say their name yet. But I wanted to give Mike Smith a call today because that company, they give me a time frame when they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I noticed when I have way too much time on my hands, so last night I'm reading traffic reports because Dave Redden,
Yes, and
I know Dave Redden, I gotta say, he answered my letter within 2 days, and he outlined, he added to all of my paragraphs and read where I could find information that would address those issues, and his take on it. And so I last night I'm going looking, trying to find all this crap on the town website, and what I found was that the issue of community zones where double fines and all that stuff, that all began being incorporated in 2000, and before, like from 2000 right up. Those issues have came up, and in 2012 there was they changed a lot of the zones to community zones to identify them, to double the fines for speeders, and that was a safety mitigation.
Right. And they did reduce the speed limit.
That's another one. I found the bylaw where they reduced the speed limit for areas and stuff. But that was all done based on the existing pressure that was already building. It had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
So now, what's going on now has in no way been incorporated into any of their plans.
Yeah, and I can just add a little bit to that because I'm on Lake Drive South in Keswick, and I don't know how many times when I was in the yard, people stopped and asked me where they could go to a beach in Georgina, it had to happen 50 times this year. I've never happened before because I think COVID, everybody wants to
Absolutely.
get, and we've got a huge draw now because people want more space in their housing and their lots, and we just have a surge of activity here, and it's a surge, not just a little blip, it's a surge. And I noticed it on Lake Drive at my in-laws, and even at my place in Lake Drive shows that we kept sending them up to Beaverton or Vermilion or something because like all our beaches were all closed, and you couldn't get anywhere near, and you know. And one of the things I had the poor people at the variety store there in Island Grove, all of the people were meeting there, trying to find out where to go, and of course they got a beer store there now, so they're all drinking in the parking lot, trying to figure out where they're going to go and swim on the lake, and they couldn't. But it was like a huge surge of activity is what I'm saying.
But we're already at capacity in the lakefront parks that are there.
Yeah.
The parking that's there is there and shouldn't be expanded, because if you expand the parking, you're bringing more people into the beach, and your beach loading, which is, it's governed by statute.
Yeah.
It's dangerous if you exceed that. So they're caught in a situation where, especially in De La Salle, there's no more room.
And
Can't accept any. At Willow Beach, same. The parking is designed for the beach loading.
Yeah, well, that's how they do that, yeah. Yeah.
So, there's no more room for more people. So encouraging more people is only going to exacerbate the situation.
Well, and that's what, and Tim's been on the thing about it being a community lakefront, or lake drive sort of thing, a smaller village sort of deal.
My take of it, my view of it, reviewing the historical development of it and reading what past councils have been saying, all the residents in council chambers having the conversations back and forth, the legal representatives, all of it. It is a residential community, the entire lakefront strip for the most part, with the exception of some beach pockets and stuff, but it's essentially a residential community with a lovely view of the lake protected by the town for people passing through, and we all love to take a drive up Lake Drive on a Sunday. I mean, when you're going from Sutton to Keswick, you're all down Lake Drive, so I get all of that. It was brilliant actually, because that they struck a balance so that the owners could enjoy their properties, and the town protected the aesthetic value of the lake, so it didn't become, however you view it, but it's not a destination for recreational people. And the town's holding it out to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's disgusting. That's just my own personal.
Cyclists bring money into the community, big money. I mean, in my house on catering, I'm getting 100 cyclists a day in various clubs going by on weekends.
Yeah.
And Warden Avenue, they go up Warden Avenue. Yeah. I don't go Warden Avenue on the weekend.
No. So are you still on the square, still recording? I just want to double check. Yeah. We're still good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I don't want another mishap. Martin and I lost an entire podcast. I had his, and he said a lot of really cool stuff, but I couldn't show it because I didn't have so. Yeah, so
I think he blocked me out is what happened.
So to me, there's a nexus between, okay, it's a residential community council and 50 years of negotiations and cooperation between the residents and the past councils. 7 of them at least since it started, more like 10 since 78. And they all struck a decent balance and so on. And now this council has taken the path of, oh no, we're going to open it all up, make it a destination area. And if you read the bike path with leash-free areas and walkways, when that town lawyer sat there on July 24th in 2019 meeting and said, oh no, I know we own 90% of these, and yes, I would like to confirm that for anybody that doesn't cooperate, we have the right to fence their property off and tear down their boathouse, even if they had a permit. In that language, because Rob Grossi, God love him and all that, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, he was there sticking up for the residents that night, and he said, I want to make it really clear, it's really interesting too, because a town lawyer, I don't know what the hell he was thinking that night, because Rob Grossi said, okay, so you're talking about the road, and then the road allowance ends here, and then beyond that is this property and these improvements that people paid permits for, and then are you saying you'll be fencing that off and they won't be able to get to there? And he said, yes. Do I expect that to be option A? No, but you need escalating levels of enforcement to get, like, it's
You
ridiculous.
have to be able to prove ownership before doing that.
Well,
And the
of
town
course.
hasn't proved ownership.
No.
And neither have many of the residents. So,
Okay,
you know,
so I had a question for John. Tim talked about the Rusty Russell report.
Yep.
I haven't read anything, so.
he's an expert on it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, Tim has his take on it.
Yeah.
That it's a problem, ownership is a problem, and do you remember, if you were there?
I remember it well, I was
Could
there.
you just talk a little bit about his report?
Well,
Because I never read it, and I wasn't at the council, so.
Okay, well, his report concluded that a large portion of Lake Drive on the lakeside was, in fact, owned by the town. However, he put a huge caveat in everything he wrote, but, you know, anybody can challenge anything, and quite frankly, I don't know how it's going to go. Added into the mix is what's called the Old Smalley Survey, which I'm sure you would remember.
Yeah, I'm not old.
It has some specific information in that survey that proves some ownership, not all ownership.
Yeah.
So again, everything that Rusty Russell said at the meeting that he had at the town in the committee room when I was there was, you know, it is a dog's breakfast. You know, this is my position, but you know, it may or may not be defensible. That's
Exactly. You know what? I gotta give Rusty Russell major. Like he was a really, I would say, brilliant historian.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what his study reported was what the general thinking was at the time. This is why assumptions why people would have done this at the time 100 years ago. But he was trying to put a proper historical perspective on the development of that road.
Well,
And then he, but he said himself, yeah, nobody would win in a lawsuit. Like this is not, and he also invited, like after that meeting, he sent a letter inviting. He said, "This is my first opinion. You know, it's always open to interpretation. Could I get some input?" And he got input back from Lincoln Monteith, from Charles Lupshaw, my old nemesis. And you know, a number of other lawyers, and and so in the end, because all of the lawyers, including Rusty Russell, who agreed nobody would win in a lawsuit,
mm-hmm.
they came up with the compromise that they did, and yeah. So and the one thing is clear is even Bob McLaughlin, whom I have a great deal of respect for, he was honest in his reporting to council.
Absolutely.
There was a couple reports after he left where someone was putting words in Rusty Russell's mouth. Rusty Russell said, blah, blah, blah. Bob never did that. He would say, he would report things like, according to Rusty Russell, in those areas where the road allowance meets the water.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the point. That's never, where that is has never been established because they haven't got a proper survey done. Like every lawyer since 79 has been telling them, get an R plan done. Oh, I have a question for you, John, because you've been around Georgina for at least 60 years like Mark.
Mm-hmm.
The town owns a road there, right? Lake Drive, like they own a road
Yes.
there,
Yeah,
right?
but that
Yeah, can
used
you-
to be
can
an
you-
indigenous trail.
Yeah.
So there's...
Did you know some of them?
Well, I you know, the old rumor I had was, you know, like when they, especially at Orchard Beach, I remember talking with the lawyer about that. So basically, way back, I mean, Metro Road was Lake Drive,
Yeah.
and it was just that laneway was so the horses could get closer to the people's properties and closer to the, get your ice or whatever you had to get.
Yeah.
But Metro Road was a bit far from the lake at a few points.
Yeah.
So they just put in this laneway, which is now Lake Drive North,
Yeah.
or no, Lake Drive, whatever. And so it was just a convenience
An access
pathway,
road.
like when it was first concept, and then the surveys, and that was my take on it. And,
So
then they made it a road, so.
My follow-up question for you is, can you show me where that road is?
No, nobody can.
Okay, I wanted to be really clear because the town
Let's
seems
see
to
the survey.
yeah, without a survey, how the hell? So
not
why
there.
would they not have just ordered a survey?
Expense.
They spent $120,000 on beachfront studies for a lice map that shows us, and the map that they showed us was one we already had. They highlighted what they were working on.
Has that been published yet?
Yes,
Okay, I was unaware that it was actually published.
yeah, no, that.
They went into a consultation, as you know,
Yeah,
and they got a lot of
120
input. And what are the results?
Well, the results is that council gets to point to some warm and fuzzy internet moments, like they actually took people's input and then they do whatever they want. That's my jaded take on it.
But has anything changed though? I don't.
No, not
think
at
so.
all, but they got a big plan for changing around Willow Beach. So the thing is that I'm losing my mind here.
Well, they want to add, as I understand it, they want to add to the holdings, the land holdings.
Yes. Oh,
In the long run.
Right.
So if they're going to, first of all, how do you go farther than Mahoney's? Because you can't.
right.
Okay, so that's the western boundary. Does that mean they want to buy and it better be at fair market value, buy and tear down houses along Lake Drive to make that property larger?
They don't know, they don't know
It
what they
didn't
want.
specify that.
No, they don't know what they want. They just
Right.
want to say we own everything.
Well,
And they have no idea, to be honest with you. The lawyer's sitting there saying, we know we own everything and we're gonna tear your bulldozers down if you don't cooperate. It was like Tony Soprano there, I think he thought he was sitting there.
but they don't own Willow Beach Park anyway. The
The
Conservation
actual-
Authority does.
Who owns it?
The Conservation Authority. Town leases it
The
by
Willow
an
Beach
agreement.
Park?
Yeah.
Really? The beach?
Yeah, there's never been, I don't believe there's ever been, not the beach, the
No,
park
the
itself.
park itself.
Yeah. I don't believe there's ever been a transfer of ownership to the town.
Well, you know, before the
We went
days out,
into
I'm gonna be
an-
searching that one.
Well,
I'm dead
well,
serious.
go back
on those.
and
Yeah.
I was on council when the lease was established.
Right.
And I don't recall us exchanging any money with the Conservation Authority for the purchase of that.
The deed.
We managed it on
Right.
their behalf.
Right.
And we got the revenues and we accepted the expenditures.
Right.
But it's still owned, as far as I know, by the Conservation Authority.
Well, that's an interesting take on it. I'll have to check into the legal ramifications of that, but, I'll be sure to tell before the day's out now.
Well, we've been, I think when we first started this, Tim, our first podcast, we had decided that why do they not have an art plan of that whole section?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got a bad elephant, find out what it is. I mean, and that's the easiest thing. And then at least you've got a really good mapping of whatever is there, and then you can have some discussion, whether it's with everyone or someone, or because I bet most of the councillors that are doing this have no idea that my in-laws have 22 feet that they don't know whether they own now or not, or whether the town owns it, or
Well, there's
like they put it up in the air now. They've got a boathouse. They've been maintaining it. They've got it fenced off, and
Oh, yeah, that's the whole.
But the view isn't fenced off, though.
No.
Right.
That's the whole point, and the thing is that as you know, we filed 16 litigations in small claims court. Eight people sued the town owner and separately sued as another defendant, the town. And it was for the negative effects of the value of their property based on their actions at that council meeting.
Right.
Because people selling the property, now they can't even tell buyers, well, we'll always have the exclusive use of it, we've always had, that's the understanding. Literally.
And so I'm a realtor locally, and if I have to sell your lakefront now, and I know there's some on Orchard Beach where they have actual deeded access across the lake, but the neighbor doesn't.
Right.
But there are 2 or 3 patches there where that's actual deeds and on a registered plan.
Deeds of ownership or deeds
no.
of
Right.
right of use?
No deeds of ownership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but now, as a real, if you want to sell it, I'm going to say, it's up in the air now. I don't know if you really own that. And say, well, I have a deed that says I do. I say, well, what does that mean? And so they got to deal with different people, so many different things. We talked to the dog breakfast, and
Yeah, I can really want that.
and I'm having trouble if somebody wants to. It's a big component of your value. If you actually own the waterfront, I mean, look at the direct waterfront where you own them. They have a different value than the ones that aren't. But now they're even putting, like some people, thought that they may have owned now, and now And I can say, yeah, you got a deed there, I can sell that, but I'm not sure what it means, because.
They'll have to put a caveat on title, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that-
like
is
I
that how
bought
it's
it
working?
there that I'm not sure whether it has value or not. And so
Okay.
there's a whole bunch of crap.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you something else too. A number of these people that I know have had people walk down on the dock with their dogs. And when they went up to Tom, please, Tom said they own this.
Yeah.
Like that's happened to a number of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty soon I'm gonna go get 3 busloads and start dropping off on people's decks just to get it to come to a head. Because they all have to phone the police, and then they'd have all those reports coming in, and then council could say, we think we should deal with this now. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it's a dog practice.
The council's sticking their head in the sand. That's the habit that drives me crazy. They just they did that, and now all the consequences of that, the people have to suffer. The consequences of saying we own it, publicly saying, we own overnight, so then the people that live there have to deal with the consequences of that, both with the value of their land, and with people just walking out on their docks now, and nobody doesn't know whether you can kick them off.
Yeah, I mean, there's been
So-
some police involvement in that over the last couple of years because of.
So to the point that
yeah.
the town had to repost on their website, no, these people are the exclusive owners.
Mhm.
So, where's there was taking responsibility, like just sticking their head in the sand and doing shit like that, wait to see what happens, declaring that they own it, trying to just roll over everybody, and then I sat in Tim Hortons with Margaret 3 years ago, I guess it was, and it was, and I told her, Margaret, I had that legal opinion reviewed by, and I do, if any legal comes up, I have some people I know that, good lawyers, municipal lawyers, specifically downtown,
Right.
and I send it to them, I send them $500, they review everything, and they come back and they give me their best first flush. And without exception, they come back and say, that opinion will never hold up in court, specifically on its own period. There's a whole bunch of, and Margaret said, yeah, I know, but nobody's gonna challenge it. That's exactly what she said to me, and I thought, oh my God.
We are social distancing, by the way, but I'm just being paranoid. So,
No,
sorry.
everybody has a comfort level, and I respect it. Something that, it's why I wear a mask, no matter what, like when I go into the grocery store, wherever I go, in public places and stuff. Whether I believe it's safe or not, I do it, just out of respect for,
Other people?
if that's all I gotta do to make other people comfortable, it's the least I can do.
Yeah, didn't mean to change the subject because the
No,
subject we're on is.
it's a great subject because I'm really happy actually. I'm excited to be in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the way that we as Canadians have dealt with our relationships to one another, relationship with the community. And you see it all the time now. Community helping other members in the community and shopping local and shout out to Scott Davidson. He's always pounding the beat for constituents. So he's really good.
Yeah, he is. He's very, very community minded.
I have a great deal of respect for him. I have my beefs with the Conservative Party and I have my beefs with the Liberal Party. So I mean,
some big, long decisions made at their conference that just happened. That's another podcast because we're going backwards, and
we laugh. I misread because I'm brain dead. I don't know. I seen something where social conservatives and it had to do with gender reassignment, and I didn't realize that social conservative sounds like warm and fuzzy, right?
yeah,
I didn't realize that social conservatives were actually people on the extreme right wanting, it to be illegal to be gay. If they could, they'd be thrown off without the building that they're an Arab, I didn't know, I thought it was social conservative. And I was,
Excuse me.
anyway, I was advocating for whatever it was they were saying at the time mistakenly on Facebook, and a dear friend of mine, Grant.
yeah, he nailed you.
Oh yeah, he said, Stevie, go away and read, would you please, and come up, he's a friend, and I was happy because he was a friend who was kind enough to straighten me out. And afterwards I came back and said, listen to this is what I've done, and oh my God. So I'm very sorry for that, and it worked out well, the good old fashioned way, you're wrong, you probably admit it.
Yeah.
It was fine. That's so many people nowadays just stick to the guns no matter what.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
You okay, Mark?
Oh, I find out that I got a frog in my throat and I'm coughing, I don't wanna scare you guys.
All right.
All right, yeah, I know.
There we go.
Yeah, we've all
Yeah.
done this, we all been doing it.
The third phase right now, according to the news, is pretty serious stuff.
Yes.
You know, they may have to close down totally again. Yeah, but, you know, it's, the vaccine is apparently doing its job, so.
Yeah, I understand.
Gotta hope for a poke in the arm.
I got the AstraZeneca on 2 weeks ago.
Did you?
So
Okay.
I'm waiting for it to happen again, and, yeah, so it's, man, it's boggles my mind, like, 2 years ago, if you said, oh, we're gonna be in the middle of a world, I'm shocked that the world hasn't gone down much as a result of this pandemic. I mean, it has in terms of
Economically,
economically and so on, but everybody seems to be getting by, everybody seems to be getting along. And a nice touch I thought was that we found out who is really the essential workers.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think some
absolutely.
idiot
Yeah.
on the 32nd floor on Bay Street in a suit.
No.
I'm driving a truck.
I found it personally gratifying. I'm a bad hugger, so I don't have to hug anybody anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, this guy, you don't know how to hug people.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do it anymore, right? So it's great, you know.
One of the downsides is the people that I normally ignore. I'm ignoring them now. Anyway, listen, you know what, John, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and I would look forward to doing some
Anytime,
more of
yes.
this. Yeah, I'll look forward to doing some more of this, and I'll try to be more focused next time, get a little bit more. I kind of like to run an open dialogue. It's to me, it's a better thing. And then Martin, as always, Martin's my conscience, by the way.
Good.
He was my-
I'm everybody's
Oh, I do want to relate the first time that I met you. 1982, you were regional counselor at the time. And Jim Barber, a builder out of Oak Ridge, is about a 10-acre piece over on McLean.
Yes.
A few years earlier with a building permit. Mike Smith was trying to get council to put a hold on that because he said the Conservation Authority had asked for it because it had identified it as an environmentally sensitive area. So I had talked to the Conservation Authority and they said, no, we didn't actually ask for that. We just said that we identified some characteristics, that's all. And so Mike was doing what he believed, trying to get it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So anyway, and in the conclusion, council heard it all, heard both sides, and took into account the fact that Mr. Barber owned this property with a building permit. And you said, I'm sure we have a few red shin hawks, flying around out on McGowan, but my guess is they probably don't. And that's on the roof of the IGA, so we really should pass these guys on his way and then decide after it. No, that's exactly. I'll never forget it, as long as I live. That was my first attendance in council, and there again, the moral decision. Let's get this guy his permit, and then address the issue of those. Yeah.
One of the problems facing this council and past councils is that they're scared. They're scared of liability. And as soon as lawyers become involved, they have now the opportunity of saying, well, the lawyers said, instead of doing what's right morally. And I'm not saying they're not doing what's right morally in most of the cases, but, bottom line is still common sense should prevail, not fear of
How often is that threat or that caution from the lawyer just an attempt to control counsel as opposed to genuinely identifying a threat?
Well, not necessarily controlling counsel, but controlling an agenda.
Well, yeah, an agenda,
Of some kind, yeah, somebody's agenda, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. For example, he's told me we gotta take control of all these lands because you're liable. Well, hey, this way, the town owns about 200 roads and they're not asking anybody for liability insurance on all the drive.
No.
So what the hell? So yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, but and therein, that lawyer is gonna be held responsible one way or the other, not done yet, for controlling council's conversation, because Mike Waddington had asked, do we know we own these properties? And everybody, including David himself, said, no, we don't know. Follow-up question, most logical. Councilor Waddington, to his credit, said, or the why the hell are we spending money on property that we don't know we own?
Mm-hmm.
And that was council trying to have a proper conversation about that issue. And instead of letting them conclude what they wanted to, he jumped in and said, oh, I know we own 90%. And if you don't do what I tell you to, you could put, you're gonna be liable, you could have a lot, like,
That 90% figure cannot possibly be correct.
no, it is, that's already been identified, and, anyway, you know what, we'll find out. So, just a little housekeeping, I posted my court record on the, Georgina State Shoreline Resistance site.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the fact, which is the one thing that everybody should read, it tells the whole story. It makes our case based on the history, the facts, and the law.
Right.
It's in 3 sections, so it's a really good thing to read to get up to date on it. And then there's your affidavit, my affidavit with exhibits that relate to the historical stuff, our facts, is our evidence, is why we can prove what we're saying. And so if anybody wants to do that, and I'm in for a pretty good chunk of change so far now, because I like acting a lot early, because I don't like committees, and I don't like, because the town's got a really nifty way of dividing and conquering. Yeah, they ain't gonna divide me, that's for sure.
Never have.
Never have. So, but I'm gonna be asking for some funding, identifying areas that need funding, because I'm probably in for a good chunk. Now, to get to the next stage, I'm gonna need to chunk. I'll address it another time, but I just want to say moving forward. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yeah.
So if you could just say goodbye to everybody and hit the button.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care, thanks, bye.
See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.